And hey there, folks, and welcome to another episode of Crit Hit Interviews. I'm Arlyeon, and I'm here today with two members of indie dev studio Baroque Decay. Did I say that right? Baroque?
Yeah, okay. Yeah, who knows?
Okay. Specifically, Maxime Caignart. Feel free to say
it's
hi.
me, yeah. Hello. Maxime Caignart, you pronounce it well.
Oh, that's good. He's the coder for Yuppie Psycho, and I believe you also did the coding for Count Lucanor, correct?
Actually, I'm the only coder in the team. And yeah, I did all the code now. So I'm guilty for all the bugs you will find in the game.
I mean, I didn't find, wait, no, there was the Apple thing. I'll tell you about it later. It's funny.
Yeah.
Alongside Michael Garoad Kelly, or is that actually meant to have like a French pronunciation there, or is it just like Garoad?
Yeah, it's just Garoad. The name is actually kind of a nickname I picked up since I was a teenager. I don't know if you've ever seen the show Gundam X.
No.
Yeah,
I saw
yeah,
Wing.
but that's.
I'm sorry.
Yeah. So that's one of the characters named from Gundam X, and I had used that since I've been a teenager in various like chats and online forums, and it just kind of stuck with me. So yeah, that's it.
Fair enough. It's similar to why I'm like Arlyeon. But introduction-wise, he's not only serving as the composer for Yuppie Psycho, but some of you may be familiar with his prior work as he also did the soundtrack for VA-11 Halle, i.e. Valhalla Cyber Bartending Action. So, to kick off this interview, we're just going to start with some questions to get to know both you folks a bit more, though, I mean, finding out that you're a Gundam X fan certainly helps. Is there a favorite game that, or just a game you've both been playing recently?
So both, I don't know because we.
Well, not necessarily like both of you together, but like.
On my side, I must say that one of the game I really loved, but I played it a bit late. It was Soma. That was quite an experience for me because I really loved how it was told to the player.
You can't see it, but I'm giving you a thumbs up. I really dug Soma.
It was really an experience. The horror part is it's not very, you just have to escape from some monsters, but the story itself it was a real surprise for me. We are quite used, to have great stories in game, but this one really touched me. It touched me. It was about humanity and what is it to be human.
Transhumanism,
and
too. That's like a huge thing.
Some twist, but not a bad twist like you could feel in any game. The twist here could barely guess. You know that something is off when you start the game, but you can put your mind on what it is. You begin to understand, but only if you look for information around, and something I really love.
I agree with that on a lot of fronts. Like, I feel the game had a number of twists here and there, and some of them you see coming as the game progresses. There's like a number of those moments where I'm like, oh yeah, okay, this makes sense. This I sort of expected this, but then there's other things where it goes very different directions, and it's also just neat because even when you can see a twist coming, the character that you're playing as doesn't necessarily do so, and so there's that there's sort of a tragedy inherent in the story, and I found that really neat. I also actually really found sort of the question the game poses as to whether the action that, I mean, this is a slight spoiler, but whether or not the actions that the WoW is committing are correct. Because you have two very different routes for humanity sort of posed in that, well, three. There's like extinction, which is sort of represented by the one lady, and I guess sort of your actions as you just move forward through the game. There's the transhumanism aspect of sort of the digitization of the self, and if that aspect of someone is still very much like, is that still being human? Is the mind all there is to it? And then you also have that secondary question of like continuity, that whole continuity movement that's posed in the game, and that's interesting. But there's the third thing which comes in mind, which is there is a potential for evolution for what it means to be human, not in a sense of sort of crystallizing and putting it in stasis, but actually continuing to evolve, and that's sort of represented through the WoW as it learns and tries to protect what little there is, albeit through like horrible ways, but it's trying to save people in its own way. And so there's sort of this thing of it represents this different path that humanity could take, and I found that very interesting.
Yeah, Soma was fantastic. So I think that was a great choice. You know, like you guys mentioned, the twist at the end was done very well.
So okay, we got Maxime's. How about yours though, Mike?
I'd say I haven't had too much time. You know, I've been so busy with music work lately. I haven't really had too much time to dive into anything new too recently. But I will say the last great game that I played, I was a little late to the party, but I actually started the Danganronpa series. I want to say about 3 or 4 months ago. And I actually went through the first game all the way through all the games, the first, second, I think the side episode, and then the third game, I think all within the time span of like a month. You know, I was really hooked, and I would definitely say that was my favorite. You know, there's a lot of great twists, there's a lot of great storytelling, there's a lot of character and personality in the games that I really enjoyed, and they all have fantastic soundtracks to back them up as well. So that's always a plus in my opinion.
That's what I haven't played those games, but I'm familiar with like the soundtrack and the aesthetic, and that's sort of like a logic sort of detective game, which I thought was interesting.
Yeah, it's very fun. You know, you have the class trials, you know, to where you use all the bits of information you've gathered in your investigation to figure out who the killer was, and that's really all I tell people about it. You know, I think it's one of those games and series that, you know, you'll enjoy best, you know,
It's
going
a
into
darker
it knowing as
Phoenix
little
Wright.
as possible.
It's a darker Phoenix Wright. There you go.
Yeah, great way to put it.
So, okay. So both of those are sort of horror games. That actually works pretty well with the next question. So, is there a favorite horror author or director or both that that either of you have?
On my side, I'm not of this kind of movie because or game, because I'm easily frightened, you know. So, but I really like what Guillermo del Toro.
I'm still sad that PT will never be a thing.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%. Hopefully, I like to think positively, and I like to think that Kojima and Del Toro, I like to think they'll at least incorporate some of the ideas they had for Silent Hills into Death Stranding, at least. But yeah, I was absolutely looking forward to a new Silent Hill game for sure.
Yeah, instead the most we'll probably get is a pachinko machine.
Yeah, unfortunately so.
Shots fired. Okay. But I mean, that's definitely fair. I find it actually interesting though that you work on horror games and you're like easily scared, can't do it.
No,
um,
it's horrible for me because like I tried to play, for example, Alien Isolation, and it was such a mess. I had to stop every 5 minutes, and I couldn't play. If it ever happens that alien is somewhere on the planet, I'll be the first to die. I can't play this game.
I liked that game. It got a bit long, but admittedly, like the culmination of the game and where it goes near the end was pretty awesome. Because it changed up the formula a few times. But like, yeah, that game was creepy, and then it was like antagonistic as hell with the way like the AI for the alien was. I loved it. How about you, Michael?
So, I guess as far as horror directors for say movies
Or authors, or both.
Yeah, or authors. Well, to be honest, like it's kind of a secret. I don't tell people this because I get shit for it all the time. But I'm not much of a reader, to be honest. But I greatly appreciate John Carpenter's work as well as David Lynch's work. For games, I would definitely say I think probably my favorite horror series, in terms of gameplay and games would be would absolutely be Silent Hill. I remember playing that series years and years ago. I remember playing that series for the first time, and theorizing of what exactly was going on. Visiting online forums and coming up with all these crazy theories and
That is a very deep rabbit hole.
Yeah, exactly. You go on forums, especially back then, and you would talk about the games and what they really mean and, people's interpretations and theories for them. And yeah, you're absolutely right. You can go down a very, very dark and deep rabbit hole from there.
Especially for like, I felt like the first three, because they were like the best, to be fair.
Yeah. Yeah.
Homecoming was like fun, but it doesn't match up to like those first three. Like Homecoming is, I think, the one that I visually found the most appealing, especially for the transitions, and it sort of tied together like the gameplay element and some of the like really neat stuff you had in the movie, though the movies were mostly trash, but just sort of like good looking trash. And then I sort of wish I could get like a nice remaster, like visually just remaster the first, second, and third game with some of those transitions and things, because it'd be really awesome to see. But otherwise, don't touch them, don't change them, just as they are.
See, I'm in the group. I didn't particularly like the transitions. I liked it when it was very ambiguous, and left up to interpretation. As far as like you pass out and the next moment you wake up in this crazy world. I kind of fall in that group. The transitions and everything, to me, they were visually impressive, but I kind of, prefer without it.
Well, I mean, it wasn't you always passed out. It was sometimes you just like walked in a door and the area loaded and it was effed, which was less ambiguous to me and more like, oh, loading screen. Now we're in hell.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, fair enough. And also fair enough on the reading thing. I know that with like the internet and work and everything else, it can sometimes be a bit of a trick to just sit down and read something. That's why I carry books on the bus. It's also why, there's a lot of reasons I carry books on the bus. Anyways, what got you into game development? I guess to switch things up, we'll start with you, Mike, since you do composing. Like, how'd you get into the industry?
Well, I still feel very new in the industry. When I was writing music, I always kind of had that in mind as a goal, is to be writing music for video games and going into the game industry. And the way I did that, I finally felt I got to a point with my music that, I felt like I was ready to take on a project. So, I would do some research and go online and look up, various indie games that were in development, and try and reach out and see if they were interested in my music, for projects that interested me. And that's how I came in contact with the Sukaban guys, and I had started working with them on a project before Valhalla was even an idea at the time. And then, a little later on, Valhalla came to be, when we started working on that. And people, for some reason, liked the music for it and everything. So, it's kind of kicked off from there. I've had more opportunities to work with different developers and, writing music and stuff like that. So really it feels like, the result of, preparation and then, making sure that, or rather taking the initiative and, hunting down a project rather than waiting for one to just kind of fall into my lap, I guess, if that makes sense.
Fair enough. How about you, Max?
Well, it's pretty much the same, I guess, because I was always programming games around when I was a kid. I was this kind of kid that programmed games on his calculator, and I continued to do that when I was a bit older, just doing that at home on my computer. Make little games, understand how it could work, and games or even things a bit more serious. But I didn't feel comfortable enough to. And then I had a change in my life. I left Paris, sorry, and I changed my work, and suddenly I had a lot more time and energy to put on this project. So I decided to mobile games because at the time it was something that was still possible. It was at the beginning of Android, and a little game, and then I met some people that wanted me to port their game, and way I started to create my tools and feel a bit more confident. And then here we are. You just become an indie developer just like that, and before you know it, you're an indie developer. It's all project that launched me into that. And then a bit after that, I decided to make PC games because mobile games are.
Fair enough.
Yeah, now I'm a PC developer.
So, how exactly did Baroque Decay come to be as a studio?
Well, it's. When I released the game on mobile, it attracted attentions of Francisco, who is my associate, and we decided to work together because he saw that I have programming skills, but I like art direction. The games were and they totally lack stories. So we decided to team up and see what we could do. It was pretty much random. I received a mail from him, and we started like that. I was looking for a team actually, but it's not so easy to find, and it just come out of the blue, and we started to work together. It's simple as that.
Alrighty. And Michael, in regards to like working on Yuppie Psycho, I suppose, is your sort of part of Baroque Decay specifically for this project, or are there plans for you staying on for future projects after this?
I'm not 100% sure. Right now my focus is just kind of on Yuppie Psycho and this particular project, making sure it needs to be what it needs to be for this project. I guess it really depends on what kind of game Baroque Decay decides to make next, and if my style of music would complement that, or if someone else's style would maybe complement it a little bit better, So we haven't really discussed any plans for that yet, so I can't really speak. But I'm confident that those guys will make the right choice when it comes to whatever's going to fit their next project the best.
Okay, so sort of in line with the whole studio question is you folks recently partnered up with another indie. How did that come to be?
Well, as far as I know, I didn't. In the another indie of publisher, but we were looking for a publisher. That was for sure, because after the Count Lucanor, we we knew that we have we had to find a publisher, because now that we released the game, we more serious for the publisher. Our first game of the Count Lucanor was something that interested publishers. We were just unknown people, and the game was a bit strange to them, so find our publishers. And then after the Count Lucanor, it was quite obvious that we will choose someone to make all the marketing, communication and stuff, because that was Francisco that took care of that, and it was quite it's a real job, and you can make it right if you are not 100% working on it. So we decided to publishers, and we are almost ready to sign with publisher, which is a Tiny Build. And yeah, we had contact with other publisher, and in the end we choose another indie because it was a smaller publisher that looked very interested near Yuppie Psycho. So go with them. Smaller publisher. Also, the Asian market was something that interested us a lot, because the Chinese version of the Count Lucanor, and see that there was a great commercial potential here in the Asian market. We chose them because they were a small publisher that will listen to us, and also China. Yeah.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. So, is there anything that you'd like to share with the audience, or words that you may have for aspiring devs?
Aspiring devs, yeah. So it's to be a developer and make a living out of it. So there is a very known rule in indie game development. It's don't quit your day job, honestly. Before doing that, be sure to have enough experience. You have to 100% sure that it's something that won't be too harmful for you. So complicated. Making games is easy. It's easy and easier. So the market is crowded, and so yeah, you can start making games. It's fun. Do it. Learn and do it, but don't job. It's a bad idea. We see so many horror story about that. So yeah, you can have fun, making games and even released. But yeah, you keep on doing that.
Fair enough. How about you, Mike? Any bits of advice or just words for the audience? I mean, you're the composing side of things, but I imagine there's unique
Yeah,
life lessons.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with Max's points on a lot of things. You know, just stay dedicated, keep working. You know, make sure not to give up your day job. You know, especially I guess when maybe you find a project and you're very excited about it. You know, you kind of think this is my chance, but you want to make sure that before you make that giant leap, that you have a lot of security and a foundation set up. Because like Max said, there could be some horror stories, behind it. So make sure to be responsible. Stay dedicated, just like anything. What you put into it is what you'll get out of it. And I would also say, as appealing as it might sound to, take on a project, solely for, I guess, the work and, possibly the money. If you can, I would say to maybe avoid doing that. I think it's very important for you to really only get involved in projects that really interest you. I feel like you're going to do your best work, when you're involved in something that's close to you, something that you're invested in and something that you really enjoy. And I think that if you start getting involved in a project solely because of a paycheck or for the work, then you're not going to do your best work. And I think it'll show at that point. So yeah, just being responsible, making sure you stay dedicated and continue working, even if things might get discouraging at times, that's just a part of it. Being able to push through that. And at the same time, making sure to, I guess, maintain your artistic integrity, and stay involved in projects that personally interest you.
All right. And this is going to be the last amongst the, well, I guess the personal questions, but between the two of you are, if one, or rather, do either of you, oh God, please editor, go back in time and just flesh this. Okay, so for the last of the sort of like, I guess, personally aimed questions, do either of you have any indie projects that you feel deserve a plug?
Big question. Honestly, there are so many projects running in development, and I couldn't find one to specifically point. I don't even have time to follow them all, so no, sorry, I can't really answer that.
No worries. My wish list is 256 games long for a reason. Christ.
Yeah. Again, I kind of agree with Max. I think it's a very exciting time for indie development. There are just so many fantastic indie games that are coming out, and 10 years ago, I guess I'd say indie games have come a very long way from 10 years ago. I'm seeing indie games coming out that look good or just as good or even better than a lot of games they were modeled after. The pixel art graphics have come a long way.
Holy crap, yeah.
The storytelling has come a long way, and just everything about it's come a long way. And I think a lot of people are beginning to notice that, and I think the indie scene isn't particularly just seen as the quote indie scene anymore. I think it's being taken a lot more seriously, with these various developers who are not AAA coming out with these amazing products and amazing games. So yeah, I mean, I would personally love to plug a few indie projects I'm interested in, but there are just so many. I don't feel I would do justice, or I would do an injustice, leaving some out. So yeah. So I guess the short answer to that is, no nothing I can really think of off the top of my head. But if you browse the indie scene, you'll find so many different kind of games, and so many of them, being gems, I would say.
Okay, so before we tackle Yuppie Psycho, I'd like to talk a bit about Count Lucanor. So, how did that game come to be?
Oh, so the Count Lucanor it's a rather long story, but when we start working together with Francisco, we was supposed to be a small project, and our project became too big, and it's a common mistake for indie developers to the first game, a very big game, and you lose yourself. It's easy to it something that is too big, and you will never be able to finish. So when we started working together, we learned together on how to make games and creating the tools. And as we were the game, we were adding more and more possibilities to it, and at the end it was something very too huge for the two of us, because we were only two at the time. We decided to stop the development of this game and to make something simpler by creating a game with in terms of gameplay and code and tools, because the goal of Francisco was to live from making games. So he wanted to make a small game where I did not have too much code to produce and something to release quickly. So that's how we decided to make the Count Lucanor. So basically, he made all the story, all the characters, everything. And on my side, I modified the engine. I created new things to create the world and so on. So yeah, basically it's a small project to make sure that we release something. And yeah, we succeeded in that, and we were lucky because it happens quite often that when you decided to stop in the project, the team just shatters because everyone is depressed, and it's a failure, and it's not really easy to go on after that.
So, I suppose on that note then, what was the hardest challenge when making Lucanor?
Well, on my side, as the coder, I guess there were some parts that were not really easy for me. In the artificial intelligence, and you can see it in the game, is not the best part of Lucanor. It's a bit clunky, and sometimes we understand what is happening, or why does this enemy is acting like that. So yeah, I think the artificial intelligence was the hardest part for me. But aside from that, it was just coding. You have to focus on bugs, implementing new things. So it wasn't a really hard task. Oh, except for cutscenes, movies in the game. Yeah, that was bug and understand how to make it. It was maybe the second hardest part. It may seem stupid because it's only playing videos, but playing videos in a game is not so easy, especially if you want it to work on. So yeah, that's the second hardest part of developing this game.
Alright, so with Lucanor out for a while now, what do you feel went really well for it? What really worked well in Lucanor?
um, I what is surprised me in the game, it's was it hooked you from the beginning to the end. And the first time I played it, because I didn't play to the game before the beta, because as a coder, I can only make tools to the creator of the pixel artist and the people who makes maps and scripting. So plays the whole game before very late in the history of the development, maybe like 4 months before release. I played it the first time, so it was a little frightening for me, because I was not sure of what will come out of this game. Will it be good? Will it be bad? Or just uninteresting? So I start playing and play it in one run, because I was so hooked in it and on what Francisco created as a story. You can feel that is inside of him, because that is what he is. So the game, you would just want to go to the end to learn what is happening, and there is no moment in the game where you just or anything. You just want to go further and make the a sense of what is happening in the castle.
I mean, I would have been pretty cool with chilling inside the kobold's room and watching him sing and dance in his underwear for a bit longer.
You managed to go there, yeah.
Great moments, great moments. Everything's trying to kill you, and then there's just that in the game.
It's a part of the game that not many people see, because you have to make specific choices to get there. Yeah, it's a fun part, because we even wrote a song with lyrics for that, and we were pretty sure that almost no one will be able to get there.
I mean, that was on I think my 5th playthrough, because I just sort of popped through and got gradually better at saving up money and getting through the game faster and faster, and doing less and less progressively. And I picked up everything in my first run, so I had all the hints in the first run, and I talked to the mirror, and he's like, you need to be here earlier. So then I got to the mirror super quick by just storing it, which is, by the way, where the apple bug popped up, and I don't know what triggered it, but it apparently locked apples as the only item I could use for some reason, which was a pain in the butt. So I always had an apple in my hand, and I was like, I don't think I can progress. Time to load a save file then, I guess. But yeah, I just was sitting on a pile of apples with the lovely donkey corn, or whatever, the donkey that you feed apples and it shits gold.
It seems weird when you say it like that.
Yeah, I mean, trying to explain that to my fiance, I'm not healing in this game because I need to save all these healing items so I can feed the donkey and it can shit out gold, because I need more money. Yeah,
it's crazy. The character in the game are crazy, and it's something that's really.
Oh, the goat herd? The goat herd, man, that was crazy.
I think something, I played Count Lucanor, and I was a very big fan of the game. And one of the things that really got me was how well the sound design was done for the goats. It was really, really, really unsettling the way they would breathe really heavily, and the sound they would make when they would try to attack you.
Or when they're sleeping and you they're there.
Yeah, because they're snoring, but it sounds like this demonic heavy, deep snoring. And I remember that being one of the first things that stood out to me was how well the sound design was implemented there. You know, it's very unsettling and very, very creepy.
Yeah, I actually preferred them as enemies to like the cloaked guys were sort of derpy. Like they were threatening, but I found the goats far more dangerous because they were like relentless in their pursuit of you. Whereas like the other dudes were just sort of derpy, and like if you triggered one and then walked under a table, they'd try and kill you and couldn't. And so I'd have fun doing that. I never tried doing that with the Castellan because he caught me at 2 different occasions and just murdered me dead. And I was like, okay, never get spotted by this guy because he's the worst. He's just walking murder. Okay.
Yeah.
This guy was a very late addition to the game. We wanted to make even more deadlier enemy. You know, someone you would already fear.
Oh, I liked him. He was so good because like you'd be hiding, and I'm like, okay, it's fine. This is like just like the other guy, and then he talks, and it like the implication of like he knows where you are. I'm just like, oh god, is he going to kill me? Do I need to run? Which is how I died the first time. Is he said that I'm like, shit, he knows where I am, and I ran out, and he just killed me like on the spot. And I was like, oh. And then the other time he got me was like the fake chest room where he pops up behind you. Like, because the room's clear before, and you're like, you know, it's fine. It's just a room full of tons of fake chests. That's fine. And then he shows up, and I was like, but no. And I didn't put candles in that room at first. So he just snuck up on me and murdered me dead. It's not good.
Yeah, but you had candles.
Oh, I
tons of
had
them,
candles for
probably.
days. I had around 40 on me. Because I kept picking them up after I cleared an area and taking them with me. I was just collecting them, basically, because I'm an idiot. But yeah. So, question.
It was very important. Yeah.
Oh yeah, no, like I actually really liked the candle idea. It was really neat, and when I did like the next things, I was super careful in preemptively placing candles where I needed them. So like things were pretty smooth sailing for me once I knew which rooms I'd want to have candles like permanently left in and which ones I didn't. But are there actually any specific features or details that didn't make it into the game that you really wanted, or you know, were originally part of the game and got cut for whatever reasons?
I don't think so. Well, the way works is that you know, Francisco is working in Spain, and he has Rodrigo as a teammate too there, and also Enrique. And the 3 of them are talking a lot about the game together. You know, Francisco has a lot of crazy ideas, and often there is Rodrigo and Enrique that are here to tell him to stop doing 2 things that are too crazy. So things happened. It happened in Spain, and I never heard of it. So yeah, basically maybe there are tons of things that didn't make it into the game because they were too crazy or just too bad. But in the end, I think that didn't you know, remove features or interesting things from the game with the way that it should have been.
Huh. So what engine?
Making.
Never.
Very sorry.
No.
I would like to say that making 5 different endings, it's in a game. That's why you, even in, you know, big games or the too much different endings. So
Was there just 5? I felt like there was more. I mean, a couple of them were like permutations of each other, but
there were 5 endings, if I remember correctly, but not much more or less, because there are 5 achievements on Steam about the endings.
Yeah, yeah.
Just 5.
Oh, wait, 1, 2, 3. Yeah. Yeah. There's just a bunch of achievements tied to those endings. That's what it was. Like feeding the goat an apple after. It doesn't shit gold, it just gives you shit. So, what engine did you use to make Count Lucanor, and is it the same engine you'll be using to make Yuppie Psycho, or rather are using to make Yuppie Psycho?
So the engine will be the same as for Yuppie Psycho or Count Lucanor. It's an homemade engine I made on with Java and OpenGL, so everything is homemade. And the reason is simple, is because when I started to code Android games, you code in Java and you just ask for OpenGL to draw things on the screen. So I started from there, and adding more and more features. And so at some point, I had already a full working engine with everything that I wanted, and so I kept on improving it, and Yuppie Psycho with it, and we add a lot of things, more effects, and fixing some bugs around, or making new tools or animations to the game, or better effects. So yeah, it's entirely homemade.
That's actually really awesome. So
A lot of time to make such an engine, and if you do it like that, it's really the hard way. You have to reason to do that, and because there are tons of existing engine or framework around to help you cure and not to struggle with system things, or things that are really not fun to code. But yeah, if you want to do it the hard way and learn how to really make a game, or game is working, it's still a good choice, but it's gonna be very, very long. I'm currently writing a new engine because this one is not perfect. So I'm writing a new engine, and a lot of time, really too much time. So you have to be sure you have the energy and time to make something like that.
It's give me one moment here. Like, editor, please edit this out. I'm processing that, because a bit of it's me wondering, like, so is it an identical engine between, like, Lucanor, Yuppie Psycho, or have you made like improvements to the engine itself between the two games?
Well, it's because if it was to make the if it were to make we did not want to. Sure, we wanted to continue to do only 2-dimension games, with top-down view, because Cisco want to explore the way, and he said to me that he wanted to do 3 dimensions. So I say, okay, so first we are going to ditch the Java engine. That problem, because you can port Java games to console. It's not possible. There is nothing like Java on console. So it requires a lot of work to make a port. So of the need we have is that it have to be something really easy to port to console. So So 3D port to console, but also I did not want to go with Unity because I'm used to make my own engine and to be able to customize it the way I want and not to be. So I chose a game framework called Monogame, which is the one that has been used for the game like Bastion, Axiom Verge, Transistor, I guess. I'm not sure, but some nice game were made using this framework, and it's a framework that is the continuation of Microsoft XNA. I don't know if you. So basically, it's like giving you core tools to make games, but you still have a lot of work to do. It's not something like with a nice editor like Unity or blueprints like the Unreal Engine. You have to do everything by yourself, but you have some great help to at least display things on the screen, make the gamepad works, or have sound. It's nice framework, and so yeah, it will be it's a 3D framework engine that will display part of the elements of the game will be in 3 dimension, or an other part will be in 2 dimension, pretty much like games you had on console at the parts of the maybe on PS2 you have, or even PS1 you had this kind of game where sprites were, you have sprites and 3D elements mixed together in the game. It's there are some reason to that because and we need to make content rather quick. So having being able to draw pixel art like we already did on Lucanor or Yuppie Psycho, it's important to us. So to keep on working like that, displaying sprites in the 3D world.
Fair enough. Now the next question is rather specifically for Michael, but what was it like composing music for Yuppie Psycho? And how did this differ, if it did, from the work you did on Valhalla?
So, I would definitely say that it's very different from Valhalla. I think if you've listened to the Valhalla soundtrack and you listen to the Yuppie Psycho soundtrack, I think the DNA will still be there. I mean, it'll sound like, my approach to how I write the music or how I approach the music will be the same. But speaking of what they are overall, it's kind of apples and oranges. For both projects, the very first thing, that came to mind was that I wanted to make something memorable. So for Yuppie Psycho, the premise and the art style and everything about the game has a ton of personality and charm, and I wanted to mirror that through the music. So with Valhalla, it was more so giving a lot of the tracks a lot of energy, a lot of catchy melodies and a lot of hooks that would hopefully, kind of stay with people. For Yuppie Psycho, to make something memorable there, it's more about creating sounds and atmosphere that really kind of sticks with the player and kind of haunts them. That was, my particular goal. And I thought about the feeling I had, when I was younger. I have a couple specific examples. Playing the very first Silent Hill game, I think I was like 13 or 12 maybe. It was late at night and I was playing the hospital, the alternate hospital,
Yep.
after it changes.
Yeah.
And there's a particular song that plays there. It's this very, very brooding, dark ambience at first. And then when you encounter an enemy, you hear this banging noise that just gets louder and louder and louder before it explodes into this, chaotic, very noisy, very unsettling track. And I remember when I heard that for the first time, it was late at night and I was playing alone. The music helped creep me out so bad that I actually turned the game off that night and didn't play until the next day. And then there are also times, I think back to the very first Quake. I was very young when I played that, and some of the soundscapes and the music was very, very unnerving and very scary to me then. And I also think back of also again when I was younger, and I would try and stay late up at night and hide and watch classic Halloween movies or the classic Friday the 13th movies when they came on. And, I remember a lot of the music being very unsettling and creeping me out there. So that feeling, especially with the Silent Hill example I used, where it creeped me out so much I actually turned the game off, was a huge inspiration for, I guess, creating some of the music and the ambiance for Yuppie Psycho. And I wanted to make sure the songs were structured in a way to where it could also, possibly be enjoyed outside of the context of the game. I feel like in a lot of different horror projects that a lot of the music is just kind of background noise or background ambiance. It's just kind of it doesn't have very much character or very much focus on what sounds it's actually using. So I wanted to make sure that wasn't the case with this game. I wanted to create sounds that would hopefully stick in the player's mind and make things very unsettling for them. And I think overall it's a success. I'm very proud of the work so far for Yuppie Psycho, and I think I've achieved a little bit of what I initially set out to do, and I hope players out there will enjoy it.
What's been the workflow for actually getting the tracks composed and actually properly fitting for the various scenarios?
So the very first thing I did, when I was talking to Francisco about the game and he was explaining the premise to me, he gave me some concept art at the time and was talking to me a little bit about the the setting that the game would take place in. So from there, horror is this is the first time I've really kind of dived into the horror genre. So, after he gave me the outline of the game and some concept art, I spent a lot of time experimenting, just writing different music, different songs for possible different scenarios to try and explore what the world of Yuppie Psycho would sound like. So that was a lot of experimenting, a lot of writing, minutes and minutes and lots of music to try and find that specific sound and personality for Yuppie Psycho. From there, when I felt a little confident in what I wanted it to sound like and, what I wanted the music to actually be, as we started getting further along in the development process with various scenarios and situations happening on screen, I kind of focused those concepts in to complement those scenarios, which was a lot of fun, because with Valhalla, there are a few tracks that were done specifically for various scenarios, but the vast majority of that soundtrack was just kind of writing,
Fun music.
Yeah, just kind of writing general music, that people might enjoy, listening to in the jukebox that would maybe fit the cyberpunk setting. So Yuppie Psycho is definitely a lot more focused, and a lot more driven towards specific scenarios and, what's unfolding on screen. So it's been very challenging, but it's also been a lot of fun, and I've, learned a lot from it. So, again, I'm very proud of the work, and, I'm speaking conservatively as to not jinx myself, but I'm very, very excited for people to hear it and, see what they think about it.
I also find it mildly ironic considering that setting-wise, dystopian corporate hellhole seems to be sort of a running theme in both games.
Yeah, yeah.
All right. So, on that subject of workflow, like, what was your general sort of process, Max? Binge coffee and
Oh,
pull all-nighters?
it's okay for me. If you want, we can continue. So, general process. We we are quite Francisco when we work, because we work on our side. It's really two separate workflow. He is creating stuff on his side, creating graphics. He has all the tools to integrate them in the game. And so usually he contacts me when there is a bug somewhere, or when he wants a new feature on some specific part of the game. So, and we work on our side when we ask just once to each other when this part will be done or not, or what do you want, or what do you need. And it's very organic. We need something, it's done in the next few hours, and continue on our job. Just him creating the story, me improving the engine and the tools. And sometimes it could happen that I have no work for a week because he doesn't need something from me, and then he asks me 10 things, and following weeks I work like mad to make them into the game. So rather, it's in the development for people that when they want on the project.
Okay, so now this is a question more towards the game itself, but compared to Count Lucanor, what is the comparative size of Yuppie Psycho as a game?
So I asked Francisco about that because I don't have a clear idea, and I think it's something like 3 times the size of the game. We have more cutscenes. We have a lot more graphics, animation, and I think it will last like 3 times it will be 3 times longer. We are not really sure about that because we have to make a play test with people, because when you know that you're going straight to each goal, and it's easier for you to know. So, and when we look at the stats of people playing Lucanor, some people finish the game in 3 hours, but we have people that the first run could take like 8 or 9 hours because, well, they take their time or they die a lot in the process. But
Screw up at the fire room forever, walk into the wrong door.
Oh yeah, tell me about it. I remember I made the mistake of not saving like the first time playing through, and for whatever reason, I woke the goat up, right? So I'm freaking out because this goat's chasing me and it's not stopping, and the fire's not bothering it, and I ended up dying in that room. But once I learned, I think that was the key. Once I learned not to wake the goat up or go anywhere near it, I was fine after that.
Oh, also, actually, though, the goat in the maze, because I died trying to lure it into traps, because I was like, there's traps here. It should kill the goat, right? Makes sense. This is going to be my comeuppance for all those other goats. And so, I'm, like, getting mauled by these traps and, like, burning all my healing items, and it just doesn't stop and catches up to me. And I hadn't saved for an hour and a half. So, like, yeah, it hurt. It hurt because I was doing quite well, and then I enraged this goat, and I'm like, I guess I have to like kill it, because I'm not gonna outrun it. This is gonna make like the rest of this section like a complete hellhole to deal with. Like the fire room, I guess once you like wake up the goat, you're pretty much dead, aren't you?
Yeah, there's no getting around it. I thought I was like, maybe if I can get it through fire, it'll be fine. But I forgot it's a demonic goat. Fire's not going to do shit. And I like to at least applaud myself because I persevered. I made it all the way around to where there's that small little vent, at the area where you pour the water to put out the fire. I made it all the way there, but I died right before I could get through the little vent. So it was very stressful though. I was freaking out.
Oh man. Also, me finding out about the Burning Man achievement and actually having to do a run through specifically to just save up enough cheese and bread to get that.
Yeah.
And then I was like, this, I just wasted like 5 pieces of bread and 6 things of cheese. I'm just gonna let the fire kill me now that I have the achievement. I'm done. It's good. It's fine.
It was a very late addition to the game. This Burning Man achievement.
I loved it. I was like, that's such a devilish thing, but it's great. Yeah, I guess that's my one lament is that for like players who got sort of clever about things, you couldn't actually kill those enemies because it's like the rare 2 instances where you think maybe you could get that bit of comeuppance, but no. And I was a little sad about that, and also slightly annoyed when the death came.
Yeah, probably the fun part is that probably I asked Francisco about this. Should the enemy be killable by fire, or is there a way that we could kill enemy? And because it will require some code to make it work, and the goal it was very focused on you don't have to cut anything. If it requires you to modify too much things, then forget about it. So maybe there are some some of this logic that built the whole game. It was meant to be simple, so
Ripperoni.
the goats were not you can kill them because we weren't supposed to spend too much time on this.
Well, I mean, it definitely works out for the goats, and it definitely keeps it simple for them for murdering us. They don't have to worry about the player. My poor
goats.
self.
That's a very, very nice part of the game, and
other than the Castellan,
the...
they're literally
Sorry?
the most. Other than the Castellan, they are literally the most intimidating thing in the game. Just because of how relentless they are. Like, yeah, the goats are great.
When you saw them the first time in the field with the Garoad, you said, "Oh, they are so nice and cute," and
don't remind
quickly,
me.
like 5 minutes later, they are ready to eat you. So
I walked up to one to try and talk to it. Okay, like the glowing red eyes didn't off-put me until like they all like turned to look at me in unison and then started like rushing towards me and hitting me. And I was like, oh god, no, I need to leave. And then I overshot the castle and got all the way to the house and was like basically like so close to dead. Like when I actually got into the castle the first time, I was like horribly maimed, especially since, I helped everyone at the start, so I had like no healing items or anything.
Oh.
So I was just like, oh, life is pain. But to sort of get back more on the topic of Yuppie Psycho, and you sort of touched on this already with the mention of more cutscenes, but so is Yuppie Psycho going to be, as a whole, like a much more cinematic experience than Count Lucanor was?
Yes, more cutscenes and more dialogues. It's more scripted, and but you still have what was interesting in Lucanor, but as it's longer and the story is quite more elaborated, it will be more cinematic. And Francisco is really a movie director inside him, because um, are a lot of them, but in a good way, of course, not too boring, and we'll keep the multiple endings, but yeah, it would be.
Yeah, I was actually about
Will
to
be more
ask about
cinematic for
that.
sure.
So it is going to have multiple endings like Lucanor. Is that correct?
I don't know the exact amount of multiple endings
I
we
just
have.
meant, like, are there going to be more or less?
We have always tons of idea about that, and how we have that will make it, some will not, but for sure there will be multiple endings, and we know that the players love that kind of feature, because they get it, the choice, and not the illusion of choice, and like in some games, but can really choose the way you want to finish the game. And everyone, but for me, when I finish a game using, I'm not too much into playing again and make different choices. I'm telling myself that I made these choices, and yeah, it's a choice I would have made in real life. So I'm not really too much interested in seeing what's happening otherwise.
I'm sort of on the opposite side of the board. Like, I love seeing the different ways stories branch out, which I was actually going to, other than the multiple endings, are there going to be other manners in which the story can diverge as you head towards the ending? Just like different permutations of situations or dialogue that can occur, ways the stories can sort of, I guess, yeah, diverge.
I'm not totally sure of that, because I don't have the whole script in mind, and so I can't really tell that, even in Lucanor the story never diverges a lot. It is you make during the game that will drive the way you will end it, but it never diverges. There is no real separation, and hours of gameplay that is done once you made a choice that is different from another choice you would have made. So I guess it will be, you make some choices, but it will affect the game, but not the whole story. It won't be a different branch of scenario, I guess.
So the differences towards the ending are going to be more contained towards near the end of the game. So it's not like you're going to have to redo the entirety of it from scratch. You could probably like reload a recent save file and figure out something different that was recent.
It's pretty much like Lucanor, because
Yeah,
it
okay.
worked quite well in the game, even if you made really early choices in the game, which is great, which works very well, because we saw players that weren't able to make choices for a simple game, like, oh my god, should I do that or no, and like if it was a life-changing choice, so, and it was fun to keep in Yuppie Psycho. So making some choices that affect the game, but not the whole story.
Okay. This is gonna be like the last Yuppie Psycho question here, but how is the difficulty going to compare to Veterans of Count Lucanor?
It's gonna be exactly the same. It's gonna be maybe intelligence has been a bit improved, so understand it's less buggy. It will be less unfair because sometimes in Lucanor you can have times where your enemy will be badly placed because, for example, you just go out of a room and the enemy is still there and will always be there because of a bug we never figure out. And yeah, it kills you quite easily. It does not
Because they
happen.
pull you towards them, and it's depressing. Yeah.
Big kiss. Those enemies were fun to design because I'm not. It's not something I did a lot on Lucanor, but the design I made of this enemy were from me because Francisco, had the design of the goats, and it was an enemy with raw physical power. Just biting at you and running after you, but he wanted to design enemy with more psychological. Here, you have to. I had to imagine an enemy that fear because of his power that would be not apparent at the first sight. So the way he attracts you and
like the removing of the mask
lot-
thing.
very psychological, and yeah, it's my favorite enemy in the game because I love how you, the player, is pushing on the keys or on the gamepad to escape, and you can't help but push a lot, very very strong on the keys to try to escape.
I think I know it. I think I know exactly which one you're talking about.
All the little cloaked robed guys who like pull you slowly towards them like as they cast their thing, and then they like rip off their mask and like the stuff lunges out from their face. Yeah, and you're just sitting there like mashing in the opposite direction of the pull, being like, please let me go, please let me go, please let me go.
Yeah, that works quite well. So more enemies, more different enemies in Yuppie Psycho, and I think that right now we designed all of them, and yeah, it's gonna be fun because as always, it will be surprising. So
yeah, I got introduced to the first two in the demo, so like the poltergeisted objects, and I guess I'll call him the office hermit, the dude with the drawers like tied to his back as he scuttles towards you.
Yeah, typical office stuff.
It's pretty great. All right. Oh, actually, and do you have like a favorite memory of like watching someone play Lucanor?
Honestly, I'm not too much of a stream watcher, so watching people play in streaming Lucanor was almost the first time I watched people playing a video game. So for me, it was a first experience to see people enjoying the game and other people reacting. So I think I watched a French swimmer play the game, almost a whole game, and it was a nice experience for me because I introduced myself in the Twitch chat as the developer and talk with people, and it was very very fun. Interacting with them, and you feel like you're someone important just because you're the developer of the game.
Okay, that's pretty cool. I guess I'll flip the script there just so as to not leave you out there, Mike. But some favorite moments in the game for both, like, I guess, dying horribly and also succeeding.
Speaking in terms of Count Lucanor.
Yeah, I mean, unless you've poked at Yuppie Psycho and have gotten to have some of those moments, but I wouldn't really have much perspective on that. At least in Count Lucanor, I can, like, emphasize with the moments you get shredded apart.
Yeah, I definitely had moments like that in Yuppie Psycho, but we're gonna keep that secret for now. We want, I want to make sure other people get to, enjoy and experience that. But for Count Lucanor, for sure, like some of the memorable parts that stick out to me was definitely the beginning. When you wake up and you find the goat herd and all the goats. That was very creepy. And like I mentioned before, the sound design and how quickly the tone of the game shifted, was really fantastic. I love games and media that does that.
Because it was so happy at first.
Right, exactly. There's this particular tone of the game. You feel like it's very happy, it's very bright. Under the surface, you can kind of feel something's not quite right.
Which is sort of normal, though, for Fate. Like, it was very grim fairy tale, like, you're coming across the characters you help along the journey, and they're sort of crappy, but it's okay. It's nothing too bad.
And then all of a sudden you wake up and it's a completely different world, so I really appreciated and enjoyed that. Like I mentioned before too, the fire room, that was a particular moment, just trying to make my way around these flames, this puzzle with all these fire, and I had this goat chomping at my ass, trying to get away from it. I can never pronounce the guy's name. The red Carmelingo. I think. Yeah. I specifically remember the part so where you need to activate the clock.
I got stuck on that for ages.
I did too. That particular puzzle, it took me a few minutes to kind of figure out how to get there, and I really liked it because it was completely silent in that room, and all you heard was the ticking of the clock. And he's kind of hunting you, and I think he says, I know you're here. So it's a very stressful moment. Yeah, and you have to figure out what to do. That was definitely a highlight, and I also really appreciated all the endings for Yuppie Psycho. Were very charming and very well done. So the endings as well were very memorable. I'm a big fan of that game, and I still, whenever I feel like it, I'll have the urge to just kind of boot it up one night and just do a quick run through. It's a very charming game. And with that being said, I might sound a little bit biased because I'm working on Yuppie Psycho, but to me anyway, like coming from a fan of Count Lucanor and thinking that game's terrific, to Yuppie Psycho, it really feels like, in comparison, it feels like Count Lucanor is kind of like you're at a pool and you kind of dip your toes into the water at first. And Yuppie Psycho feels like, okay, the water feels fine and you just cannonball into the pool, So I'm extremely excited about Yuppie Psycho and people experiencing it for the first time. I think it's a incredible game. I think it's a very special game too, and I'm excited for people to play it.
Oh, actually, so since you've played them both, how did you find the difficulty in Yuppie Psycho compared to Lucanor? Like, how's the difficulty escalation, overall difficulty?
I would say it's about the same. There's a lot of focus on puzzles, but kind of like Max mentioned as well. There are a little bit more variety in enemy types. The AI is a bit smarter this time around. And I think some of the enemies can pose a lot more of a threat, in the game and everything. But overall, I would say the difficulty is about the same, with some enhancements here and there.
Like, in hindsight, I think I'll do a lot better when I actually pick up the game proper, but I basically set off, like, almost every poltergeist into my face.
Yeah, I think I did the first playthrough too. I was just running and I was like, damn it, I keep getting smacked by these monitors and these coffee makers.
Yep, it was great. I was sitting on so much, like, items, though, because I just obsessively loot.
Yeah.
Oh, so much coffee. I never actually got to make a sandwich, though. I had a piece of bread and a piece of cheese, and I guess I was missing another piece of bread or something. Or maybe there's somewhere else you have to go to make sandwiches. But I was like, have these sandwich stuff, and I want to make a sandwich. So, rounding this off, prior to Count Lucanor and Yuppie Psycho, there was a game that you were working on, and you sort of already mentioned this in passing. Specifically, the game was Catechesis, I believe? Catechesis?
It's a complicated name. No one really knows how to pronounce it, and it changes depending on the language. So we'll stick with catechesis.
Catechesis. Okay. So, is there any plans to resume it now that you've gained a lot more experience in traction? And if you did resume it, how will it have changed from how you initially envisioned catechesis?
It's a big question because we are not totally sure of what will be the next project. On my side, if it were only me, I would love to see catechesis resumed because we have much more experience, and despite all the years, this project is still in mind of many people. There are some people who believe it has been released, or they have kickstarted it. We have some people complaining about them paying money for the Kickstarter and the game never going out. So there was a lot of attention for this game, and as I said, it's a game that we started to worked on with Francisco, and that for us, and that we decided to stop to make the Count Lucanor, and well, I think that is totally sure. So I can't promise, and in the end, it always be Francisco who will decide that, even if I can try to convince him. But he's very stubborn, so it's
fair enough.
And yeah, maybe I can't say because we already have a lot of material, and take with this. There is a story about a building that has many different floors and different things happening. So it's exactly what's happening in Yuppie Psycho. So maybe it will be too similar, or maybe we had to change things, but it's a mystery, so can't really tell.
So, other than Yuppie Psycho, then, do you have any other possible projects on the horizon that you folks have been contemplating? Since Yuppie Psycho is somewhat close to release now, isn't it?
Yeah, it's coming up in a few months, I guess. So we are on it, especially Francisco, that is doing a lot of work on it right now. So we are not sure of what will come next. What is sure that like I said before, I'm working on new engine, but I'm pretty sure that it won't be ready for the next project. It would be something that would need a few more years to complete, so it's a long time project. So yeah, maybe we will work on another project with the current engine, and maybe it will be catechesis, but maybe it will be another type of game, because games like Lucanor or Yuppie Psycho is too long, to be sustainable for studios. It's something that indie developers are quite aware of, that the more time you spend making a game, the less you will make out of it, because you will take too much time to I think Yuppie Psycho is something like 2 years of development when it will be released, maybe more, and it's too much for an indie game right now to be to make a living out of it. So maybe it will be with less story, less dialogues, and more, gameplay mechanics. That's not sure at all, but is that something we are thinking of? Because yeah, we need to prepare the future. But we have tons of idea, but what will come next is not certain.
Okay. So since this interview is sort of winding down now, first of all, I just sort of figured I'd ask if either of you have any final words.
I would just like to say, thank you for everyone who's taken an interest in Yuppie Psycho. It's been an amazing experience for me. I've had a tremendous amount of fun working on the game. I think it's, again, something very special. Max and Fren and the others have been terrific to work with, and I'm very excited for people to be able to experience this.
How about you, Max? Anything to add on to that?
Oh yeah, it's true that we are a great team. We have a lot of fun, and I think that the players are when playing the game. There are so many times where you just laugh at the dialogues or what the character says, or the setup is made for a scene. And yeah, I really hope that the players we love Yuppie Psycho the same way they loved the Count Lucanor.
Oh, right. I forgot to mention this. Lovi, who unfortunately was not able to attend the show due to sickness, adores Souza. The
Oh,
office-
she's terrific. I love Sosa too.
Yeah, she was like, oh my god, she's an office gremlin. It's great. And I was like, wait, she is, I guess. Wow. Like right back
So,
at her desk.
So that's one thing I also want to say about Yuppie Psycho as well is there, when Fran talked to me about the premise of the game, I was instantly sold. When you have this story of horror that takes place, in a work environment, that's a terrific premise. And going through the game, the characters are all terrific in their own ways. There's so much personality and so much life brought to each one of the characters, and I think people will really appreciate it and enjoy it. Kind of like Max said, that there's plenty of moments of funny dialogue. Kind of similar to the Lucanor at times.
Yeah, that
and
dark humor that sort of runs through.
Yeah, I think it really shines here in Yuppie Psycho too. When I was going through the game, there would be moments where I'd be laughing at certain dialogues or certain characters, and then the next moment I would absolutely be creeped out or terrified. As something would happen or something would shift. There have been moments too. I kind of laughed with a friend where he would tell me about a scenario, that he would need music for, and I would write the music for the scene, and then I would actually go back and play out the scenario with the music. And even though I wrote the music for the scene, the way the scene would actually play out, the scenario would play out, there would be times where I would kind of stop and be like, oh my God, holy shit. It would genuinely creep me out,
Because it all just points. Click together.
Yeah. And that, and, Fran's really, Francisco is really a genius when it comes to, writing out scenarios. And, I think knowing what will get under people's skin, for sure.
All right. Oh, and I'd also just like to say, I am thoroughly appreciative of both of you guys making the time to show up on the show today. It was a lot of fun to sort of hash out about Count Lucanor and Yuppie Psycho, and B, as a fan of the soundtrack for the Yuppie Psycho demo and also of just Valhalla, it was an absolute pleasure to make your acquaintance.
Thank you. It was a pleasure to be here. Thank you for having us.
So, to those people currently viewing, you can buy Count Lucanor and Wishlist Yuppie Psycho on Steam. For news, there's @Baroque Decay on Twitter, and they do have a Tumblr to boot. Lastly, you can check out their official website at www.baroquedecay.com, and yes, there will be links in the description. Beyond that, if you enjoyed this episode, feel free to hit the subscribe button, the bell lets you know when we actually post up new videos, and, comment if you have anything you'd like to share about this video. Well, rather say. On the note of sharing, though, sharing is caring and a great way to actually support creators you love. Please do so. It helps us, and it will one day put meat on my plate. Goat meat. Because I'm going to at least get some dead goat in my life, even if Count Lucanor won't let me. Anyways, that's all, folks, and I will catch you next time.